Okay, today we're going to talk with Ray Dupuis Sr., and Ray's got a multiple items of information that he can share with us. So we're going to do a little bit on early years and then on fishing. So Ray, if you want to introduce yourself on there.
Okay, I was born in Thunder Bay, but I lived actually in Mackenzie for the first 2 months of my life. My mother was very sick, and I ended up being raised up by relatives for the first couple of years. But anyway, we moved to Nipigon in 1937. I was about 4 years old. And when my father mentioned we were going to move to Nipigon, he worked for International Transit bus lines owned by Herdig. And the house we lived in was owned by Herdig, right on First Street with a big garage. But anyway, when he mentioned that there was a little creek behind the place where we were going to live, I was only 4 years old. And believe it or not, I can always remember the creek. I'll be fishing. And I was only 4 years old. That came into my mind, and how I will never ever know. And my life started in the fishing part, from the fishing end of it, was right in here what we call Clearwater Creek. I learned a tremendous amount there.
But Ray, did that creek really have fish in it in those days?
Oh, it was lots of speckled trout, lots of speckled trout. I learned most of my live release from about 8 years old on, because in those years you were only allowed to, you couldn't keep a fish under 6 inches. There weren't that many big fish in there, except in September when they came in to spawn. But then I learned how to live release probably at about 8 years old, because I would have some of the fish that were hooked a little too hard, and I would work them back and forth so that I learned that they needed oxygen for some reason or other, and I don't know why, and then I'd work them back and forth there. That's where I first learned live release at a very young age, and I worked. And going really ahead far, I worked as the environmental superintendent in Red Rock, and the Red Rock was blamed for the disappearance of walleye at that time. And I worked with two biologists from Toronto. We built a place, and we were doing toxicity tests. And believe it or not, I could tell what was happening to those fish. And they asked me where I got my degree in biology. I said, I got my degree in Clearwater Creek in Nipigon. No, so I've gone further ahead. But anyhow, getting back to the fishing, my father and I, all we did was fly fish in those days. And he bought me my first fly fishing rod when I was 12 years old. And we fished many of the lakes around here, and it was all fly fishing. But I would not use my fly rod. It was a bamboo fly rod, and I was interviewed on that one too. But anyway, I would make my own fly rods for fishing Stillwater Creek. I'd make about 5 or 6 fly rods out of poplar. I would peel them, and I'd put on wire eyes. Then I'd fish from the highway, sometimes right down to Lake Superior, and there was lots of speckled trout in there. And I did really good by doing that. But anyhow, I'll go back to, okay, that's part of the fishing. I'll get back to that later. But during the war years, I can remember the trains going by with a lot of what we called hobos or whatever you want to call it, but the boxcars were full. People were looking for work and that. And during the war, when we lived on First Street, I can always remember a fellow running out, because the trains, they just got water and coal, and I can remember a couple of occasions when fellas came out right to our house, ran real quick, and asked just for a slice of bread. And my mother would give them, and they'd split wood for about 3 or 4 minutes, because we had a lot of wood there that had to be done. And my mother would give them because it was times were poor in those days.
So that's depression.
We didn't realize it as kids, but realizing it later on as an adult, yes. And at that time, everything was rationed. Gas was rationed. You had coupons. You could only get 3 or 4 gallons a day or whatever it was. Butter was rationed. Sugar was rationed. I don't remember all was rationed, but my mother and some of our friends would trade the ration tickets for one might want butter, one might one might want sugar or whatever. I can always remember them trading. And
so your house on First Street and the garage was about where the EMOF insurance place is.
That's
now,
right.
Dr. Meekel's office.
Right in there.
It's right there. That's where the garage
That's where
was.
the garage,
I remember
yeah.
the garage.
Yeah.
Okay, just so people get an idea of where you were on First Street.
And we had to. My father had worked long hours. He used to drive the bus from Nipigon right to Pigeon River. And during those days, he say at Christmas or New Year's time, he only had the one day off, and that was it. He either had to work Christmas or New Year's. But anyway, he was away so much during the day, but we had to keep. We had a boiler actually down the basement, and as a young kid, I learned it'd be a boiler the same as they have in the Red Rock Mill, the huge boiler. They all operated the same, so. I had to operate that, and had to shovel 2 tons of coal, 25 cords of wood every year. I'd haul that into the garage and throw it down into the basement, not realizing that you got pretty strong doing all that work at a young age, not really realizing it. Eh?
Where would the coal come from in those days? Was there a coal place here, like a stockyard here?
There was a stockyard right across from, it'd be almost right straight across from the drugstore now, on the other side of the tracks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was a big building in there, and that was full of coal.
Because that's one thing I didn't see in Everett's pictures, would be something
might-
about coal.
Yeah, you might not,
He
yeah.
took everything else, but I didn't realize that there would have been a stockpile of coal here.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. We'd go through 2 tons a day, and we'd have to shovel that down a little square window there, down into the basement, and there was a lot of dust.
Yeah.
A lot of dust in there. But anyhow, yeah, I can remember that we had an old 1929 Chrysler. In fact, you see that picture of me with a fish in that. That's it. I started driving that at 12 years old. But anyhow, we would deliver on the weekend. There would be parcels or mail and everything else, and we'd deliver that to the bush camps. And this was during the war. On one occasion, we went. The road wasn't right all the way to Gull Bay yet, but about halfway up, we would bring parcels up there. We didn't have enough gas to get home. They didn't even want to give us any gas because it was ration. We finally ended up getting enough gas to get back to Nipigon. Yeah. But I could go on to hockey.
Hockey could take quite a while. What time are we at here, Zach?
11 minutes left. 10:36.
Okay, all right. You could just talk.
Okay, I'll just do
Yeah.
a little short on hockey.
Okay.
When we first started well, first of all, my brother-in-law Herman, he was a tremendous hockey player. We played together for many years, but we were only. I was still juvenile. We tried to bust into the Boston Bruins in junior hockey in Thunder Bay. Herman made it to the. I made it into the would be the Montreal part of it. I forget the name of the team anyway. But then I decided to come back to Nipigon. But anyhow, when we first started on the North Shore, it'd be about 1950, we had to go by train because the highway wasn't through to Marathon yet. We'd go by train. We had 4 carfuls of our
Fans.
oh gee.
Were they fans that went
The
with
fans,
you?
4 carfuls of fans along with our team, go right to Schreiber or to Marathon. for about 3 or 4 years like that. Yeah.
Was it costly to go by trade?
I don't know. All of ours were paid, so I don't really know. Yeah.
Because that's interesting. If that many people went, you must have had to stay overnight and come back.
Oh yeah.
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 Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Same marathon.
Yeah. Very popular, wasn't it? Hockey.
It sure was.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyhow, that's enough on the hockey part of it. But I just want to let you know.
But you must have played on the outdoor rink here then.
We played on the outdoor rink when we were in a league with Thunder Bay. In fact, when I was a juvenile, Herman and myself, I got a good picture of that too. We were picked up by the Flyers, but we could only play 3 games or we'd lose our status as a juvenile. So we only played 3 games. That started off with Thunder Bay. Then we got into the North Shore League, but we didn't have. Schreiber had a covered rink. Everyone else had a covered rink except Nipigon. So we had to play our home games in Schreiber for the first year. And then the next year, in fact, it was all voluntary, but we built the arena and then in Nipigon.
About what year was that, Ray? Can you remember?
Probably around 1950. 50, 51, somewhere around there.
So that was a tremendous undertaking, is to build an arena.
It was a big undertaking.
Wow.
I poured a lot of concrete with wheelbarrows and helping a lot with the lumber and everything else.
So would they have had to have proper engineers do that in those days, do you think?
No, most of it was volunteer, but we had, I can't think of the fellow's name that he did, I would say, the engineering work, but I just can't think of his name right now. I can picture him, but I can't think of his name.
So you did have an overseer of the whole project, obviously.
Yes, we had.
Yeah.
He was right here from Nipigon.
Right.
I forget, he might have worked for one of the timber companies,
Okay.
but I'm not too sure right
Well,
now.
I think I've heard little stories about getting donations from different companies as you built that arena.
As we built it,
to-
yeah.
So when you first built it, did it have that front canteen and everything on it as well, like that whole thing? Or did you just have the arena part?
It was mostly, well, there was like a big entrance part.
Right.
Outside of that, no, there was
Oh, that
no
was-
canteen or nothing
Okay.
in those days,
Okay,
no.
part of that,
No.
right.
No. And we didn't have artificial ice, but our ice was really good once it froze, though.
Well, you had lots of cold weather too.
We had
in
lots
those
of cold
days.
weather. Yeah, we had really good ice.
So would that all have been volunteer too?
All volunteer.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, that's a big undertaking when you think of the work just to create that ice then for that.
Oh, yes, it was.
So the North Shore League was
Okay, it's
Marathon, Scriber, Red Rock, Nipigon?
okay. There was Nipigon and Red Rock were combined when it first started.
Okay.
We were combined when it first started. There was Schreiber, White River, but the White River didn't finish off the season. There was Terrace Bay, Marathon, and Geraldton.
Oh, okay.
In Geraldton, we had to play during the week. We had to go on a Wednesday to play up there. It was a long day,
Yeah.
a long night.
So, I mean, when you're talking like that, so you got time off work to go and play hockey?
No, during those days, in order for me to get, especially when we were in playoffs, we had to play in marathon. Twice in 1 week, I was up 32 hours. Because we didn't have, in order to get off, I'd have to work a 16-hour shift, go to marathon, come back and work another 16-hour shift, and maybe the day off, I don't remember, then work another 16 hours. So but we were young.
Yeah.
We were young then.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier to do. I couldn't do it now for sure,
No,
but
no,
yeah, it was.
It's just interesting that you were able to work that out so that you could still play, because I always assumed most of the guys had jobs, so everybody had to work around their job.
Yeah, we
to play
didn't
hockey.
have much time off in those days. We were working like 48 hours a week, so that
Right.
takes up most of the time during the week.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
but like I said, we were young and energetic.
right. That's good, because your whole family ended up being fishermen and hockey players.
They ended up that way.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So was your dad ever a hockey player?
No,
No, he
no,
was,
my dad was, yeah, no. No, he, my dad was a twin. His mother died when he was born. One of the twins died and he was brought up by relatives.
okay,
And he was born in Chandler, Gaspé.
oh,
Yeah. We're one of the, what do you call it? Oh boy. Just trying to think of our, what do they call them? When we were, okay, my relatives were booted out of, my relatives went,
Immigrant?
immigrant?
no, what are they, oh gee whiz. They didn't want to enter the war with, I guess, with England, whatever it was, and my relatives were in, I guess it would be Nova Scotia, and my family ended up in Gaspé, and the other ones ended up down in the United States, down in,
Okay, you were draft dodgers.
no,
Oh.
no,
Oh, they were
they're,
drafted.
no, they were being, because they didn't want to join France, they didn't want to fight.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Oh, gee, what do they call us? In fact, we were just talking about it the other day. When my relatives were booted out of there.
So anyway, they were booted out and they came this way.
Oh, my father did,
Yeah, your
yeah.
father
No,
did.
no, most of my relatives ended up in Gaspé, Chandler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, very good information, Ray. You have lots more I know that you could share with us another time.
Yes, I do have lots more.